Um,
Yes, ma'am.
Bhagatwa, shall we
Yes,
start?
ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi barakatuhu, and a very good afternoon to everyone. No matter how busy you may think you are, you must find time and surrender yourself to self chosen ignorance. To acquire knowledge, one must study, but to acquire wisdom, one must observe. With that few inspiring words, I'm very happy to welcome you all for the International Workshop on Essential Study Skills Day 2. I would like to call upon Ms. Kasim B., second year BA English, to recite the prayer and render its translation.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon everyone. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. So Al-Fatiha, the opening, chapter 1 of the Holy Quran. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. Thee alone we do we worship, and Thee alone do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom Thou hast bestowed favors, not of those upon whom Thy wrath is brought down, not of those who have gone astray. Ameen. Jazakallahu khair.
Thank you, Kasim B. I now invite Dr. Lalita, Assistant Professor, Department of English, that will address.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Department of English, Justice Bashir Ahmed Syed College for Women, I welcome each and every one of you, the participants, and our resource person for the second day of International Workshop on Essential Study Skills. This is Atya Bansal, Madam. It's our culture to welcome any guest for that matter with a bouquet or a basket of dry fruits. This pandemic impact has created a virtual platform, and hence I express my hearty desire to welcome you with a bouquet, ma'am. Atya Madam, she is a teacher trainer, poet, and a writer working for Alif Academy that helps students to become independent learners and strategy planners through various training programs. More than teaching students, she believes in training teachers so that multitudes of students can be benefited. Her study skills program comprises of topics like designing higher level learning tasks, preparing students' learning profiles, essential study skills, creative writing workshop, and poetry writing workshops. The speciality of such programs is that they are all through virtual platforms. Some creative programs are even through Skype. Yesterday, we all listened to the effective presentation strategies. Hope students would have sent their feedback form. I also believe that students would have promptly completed the homework on critical reading of the history of Palestine. The homework gives a clue that today we are going to listen to the nuances of critical reading. With this small note on the resource person and her task, I welcome Mrs. Atya Bansal, who has consented to be the resource person for this international workshop. I welcome you, madam, and I request you to take over the session. I request rather the students to make use of this opportunity, make advantage of this opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Sister. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lalita ma'am. I'm happy to welcome Mrs. Atya Bansal. I request you to take over the session, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Rabbi shrah li sadri. Wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So, dear all, assalamu alaikum, namaste, good afternoon, and vanakkam. So nice to meet you again. Today's topic is, as you know, this is critical reading. And before we move on, I want to tell you something. Yesterday, I told you, don't write too much on your slides or when you are doing presentation. So today you may complain that I'm not following what I said. So I want to make it clear, I'm not doing this webinar in the presentation mode. It is more or less a classroom mode. So please, I'll be writing a lot on the slides so that you are able to read things. And I would also request, if you can fetch a paper and a pen, try to take notes. Taking notes while learning something, it always helps in learning better. With having said that, today's overview will be something like this. We'll talk about what is critical reading and how to read critically. What is critical reading and how to read critically. And then we'll talk about critical reading in the age of fake news and strategies to become a critical reader. The trouble is very few people nowadays care to be critical readers, and I want you to be, among the leaders who know how to read critically. And most of you must be. So let us begin with this thing. What do you understand by critical reading? Mind writing something in the chat box? I can monitor the chat box here. So write something. What do you understand by this critical reading? Yeah, write something. Whatever comes to your mind. See, nobody learns without making mistakes. So making mistakes is actually good for learning. You learn one way of how not to answer that particular question. Yeah. Beyond surface reading. Yes, very good. Close reading. Okay. Deep reading. Yeah. Analysis. Analysis of what? Active way of reading. Yes, it is active way. It is analysis also. Observing, judging, deeper examination of facts. So that's very good. That's very good. So you already know critical reading. I don't know whether whether I need to continue or you already know, so you don't need this webinar. Reading mindfully, yes. So anyway, let's go ahead for those who are not familiar. Oxford Dictionary has the meaning of critical as analysis of the merits and faults of a text, both merits and faults of a text or a work of literature, music, or art. Remember, analysis of merits and faults both. So what is critical reading? Critical reading is applying critical thinking skills to a reading text for comprehension. And that is where, this critical reading becomes more complex, because we have to use comprehension skills, reading skills, also critical thinking skills, everything while we are reading. Let's see how it goes. Critical reading involves carefully examining and evaluating the text for facts, as we do in academic reading. But in addition to it, we also look for intended aims and intentions of the text, which are not clearly mentioned. So we often say, don't just read the lines, read between the lines. So we will be doing that, reading between the lines. We'll be looking for intended aims and intentions of the text, which are not clearly or which are not explicitly mentioned there. Therefore, while reading a text critically, we understand it at a much deeper level, as this word had been given by so many participants. And to understand the text at a deeper level, what do we need? We need critical thinking, we need inference, we need logic and rhetoric. Okay. The goal of critical reading is twofold: to discover information, arguments, and ideas which are not explicit. This is why I said this is reading between the lines. Reading the lines plus reading between the lines. And we also evaluate and analyze the information and ideas, arguments for bias. So twofold goal here. Difference between a critical and a non-critical reader is, for example, while reading a history book, a non-critical reader looks for facts and situations as presented by the author. A critical reader reads the same history book in order to discover. Now, when I say history book, because history books may contain bias. Like much of the Indian history was written by British, and they were the rulers. So it is written from their point of view. And only a few decades ago, Indian writers have started writing Indian history from the perspective of Indians. And those of you who are in literature, because this program is organized by Department of English, you should be familiar with the, what's the term? Okay, I'll think and I'll tell you. So how local people are presented. So example of non-critical reader is, or non-critical reader looks for facts and situations as given by the author. A critical reader reads the same history book to discover a new perspective. If there is a bias, the critical reader will look for bias. If there is no bias, the critical reader will look for what is the new perspective of the writer. So I put she for students mainly. The reason is because he, he is already included into she. So please don't get offended. It's the shortcoming of the language. Either I should write he or she all the time, which becomes very boring. So she tries to understand how the facts are interpreted, how facts are used to arrive at the conclusion, and if that conclusion is valid or not. In short, non-critical reader is a literal reader, and a critical reader is a seeker of knowledge. Any question? Any question? Okay. So some of you who are doing literature, you may have heard of a word called subaltern studies. That is a pretty recent thing where we started looking at the literature from the point of the colonized people, not from the point of the colonizers. So a whole new field appeared, which is called subaltern studies. That is possible only because of critical reading. Yes, the victor or colonizer writes from his or her own point of view. Now, I want somebody to read this. You can unmute your mic and read. Just be the first one. Some volunteer. No volunteer, how come? We have so many here. How many people? 101 people have logged in. I'm not able to unmute. Unable to unmute. Kevin, Jerry, can I ask you a question? Yesterday you asked me a question and I typed the answer. I hope you got your answer.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. May I read? Muted.
Should I read?
May I read, ma'am?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. From Berlin to Bir Nabala, Palestinian activists blast a hole in the separation fence.
Mhm.
9/11/14. Palestinian activists blasted a hole in the separation fence near the Palestinian town of Bir Nabala, north of Jerusalem, on Saturday to mark the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. But this is not the first time they have done so. Many times in the past, they have undertaken similar acts of vandalism against the separation fence. It doesn't matter how high the barriers will be, they will fall. Like the Berlin Wall fell, the Palestinian Wall will fall. The Palestinian activists who organized the event wrote in a statement, according to the Palestinian Man news agency.
Thank you so much. Was it Arshia?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Arshia. Thank you so much. So
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
total news is, here is the website from which I had taken, and word count is only 94. But just see how we'll read it. Reader A understands. Reader A, there are two readers, Reader A and Reader B. So Reader A reads and understands that the main aim of the news is to inform readers what a group of Palestinian activists did to celebrate. To celebrate what? The 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And what did they do? They blasted a hole in their own separation fence. She knows that the Berlin Wall was erected by the East German government in 1961 to cut off East Berlin from the West Berlin. But fortunately, after dividing the families and people for 28 years, it was brought down by the German people. It was erected by German government, brought down by German people. The families and people were reunited, and Berlin became one big happy city. She also understands that the activists had themselves written about about blasting a hole in the wall, because they must be so proud of their act, even though she doesn't know where they wrote. She understands that though the Palestinian activists had not been able to bring down the wall like the Germans did, but it is like a good start. Someday, inshallah, you'll succeed. That's what she thinks. And she makes two conclusions. One, that the act of blasting a hole in the separation fence is presented in a positive light because it is compared with an event of great historical importance. And which was that event of great historical importance? The fall of the Berlin Wall. And she makes another conclusion, that the news is presented objectively because the text doesn't denounce Palestinian activists for their act of vandalism. They have blasted a hole, but the news doesn't say they did something bad. It doesn't even mention if they were arrested. If they had done a criminal act, they should have been arrested, but it is not there in the news. So, I want to know how many of you agree with Reader A's conclusions. Just write A or D in the chat box, please. Okay, good. Go ahead, go ahead. I want more responses. I want everyone with me. We have 111 people here participating. Yeah, 121 now. Okay, good. Go on, go on, go on. There is no problem. Just say what you want to say. Okay, D. Fine. D. Okay, so now let us see. Now the reader B starts reading. Now reader B makes two conclusions. The text portrays Palestinian activists in a negative light, and that it is biased against all Palestinians, not just the activists. Her conclusions are actually directly opposite of what conclusions reader A has made. Now we'll look into the reasons why those two conclusions are so opposite to each other, so that we find what has reader B, how did reader B read this text, and how did reader A read this text. So let's see how. Why? Reader B concluded differently because she had read the history of Palestine, which I gave to you. Your teachers have given to you 2 pages, 2 slides. And one was about history of Palestine, how Israel was created in 1948 after chasing out Palestinians from their homes and lands. She knows that information. So her conclusion is completely different. And we'll look at step by step why it becomes different. She also knows about the current situation in Israel, which is actually Palestine. Now they have renamed the whole place Israel. Even after 70 years, Palestinians are still struggling to get their right and lands back. This you know, this is the current situation. Reader B also knows that Israeli government routinely uses violence to crush them. And this is what actually makes her conclude that the report is completely biased and portrays Palestinian activists in a negative light. 2 points to remember here: negative light and biased. I'm going back and let me see. Here, if we look at the text, there are few things I want you to remember as we go along. You'll find them useful. First, most of you already know about Berlin and about Bir Nabala. We'll know as we go along. I want you to remember also this word separation fence and Bir Nabala wall. Berlin Wall, and does it say here anywhere Bir Nabala Wall? No, it doesn't say Bir Nabala Wall. It only says separation fence, which is actually in Bir Nabala. And Bir Nabala is a town in Palestine. Now let's see how it goes. This was your homework, and I'm sure you must have read it. And this was also your homework. And actually, you can see in 2014, 6 years ago, you must have been quite young that time. And I saw all this on TV. And it is devastating, devastating. Just see how. An unborn baby killed with mother in Gaza. And this particular t-shirt, you know, it really breaks my heart. It says it encourages soldiers to kill pregnant women so that for cost of 1 bullet, you kill 2 people. See, 1 shot, 2 kills. So how can we, this is the level of violence. Now let's see. Reader B reads the news critically and begins comparing the facts presented with the background information she has about Palestine, Israel, Palestinian people, and Israeli government. All this information she keeps at the back of her mind when she is reading the news. She makes following 10 observations. First, she makes this observation that word separation fence in the headline are written in larger fonts and in bold letters so as to hide the unpleasant reality of the Palestinian wall, which is mentioned towards the end. She sees it as writer's effort to divert her attention from facts. She also notices the W in Berlin Wall is capital, uppercase, but W in the Palestinian Wall is in the lowercase. The critical reader understands that this is to create an impression that the Palestinian Wall is somehow weaker than the Berlin Wall was. So she searches for facts about the two walls. She finds that the Berlin Wall was only 140 kilometers long and 3.6 meters tall, but the Palestinian Wall, or the separation fence, because the news says separation fence, is 650 kilometers long and 8 meters tall. Like the Berlin Wall, it is manned by security and military personnel who do not allow any Palestinian to enter Israel. So trying to blast a hole in such a wall or separation fence, the person will be shot dead. But the writer doesn't tell the reader all that. Why? Now comes the question why. Probably because he is trying to belittle the action of the Palestinian activists. This is her observation. She has not yet reached the conclusion. So, she knows something about the Berlin Wall, but nothing about Bir Nabala Wall. So she goes to research about the two walls, and this is what she finds. Berlin Wall, erected in 1961, brought down in 1989, and it was 140 kilometers long. And you can see here, there were so many checkposts, there were so many movies made, people trying to come from East Germany to West Germany, because East Germany was under Russia, that was a communist government, and West Germany was democratic, so they wanted to come. And Bir Nabala is a town. It is a town 8 kilometers northeast of Jerusalem. And it is completely encircled by a wall. You can see here. The idea of separating the Israeli and Palestinian population was proposed in 1992 by Nobel Peace Prize winner Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and it is a 650 kilometer long wall. You can see it goes on snaking, all over the place. All this red line that you see, this is a wall. This is a wall. In comparison, this Berlin Wall was nothing, which was known all around the world, and fortunately, people brought it down. Here you can see very clearly, this is Bir Nabala enclave. This is a small town. And just see, it is all around wall. It's more like a prison. Instead of putting people in a prison, they have put the whole village into a prison. And all this you see outside, these are also walls. These are also walls. All wall. So, reader B observes that the text repeats separation fence. Now she looks at the repetition of the word. Separation fence 3 times, once in the headline and twice in the first paragraph. That means it comes in very close proximity. She tries to understand why the writer has done this. And she understands it is intended to highlight the separation fence. By repeating it in the text, separation fence again and again, the writer is trying to highlight the separation fence. So why does the writer want to highlight the fact that this is a separation fence? Because the writer probably wants to suppress the reality of a monstrous apartheid wall, as Palestinians call it. Now here, I want to ask you, have you heard this word apartheid in connection with any other country in the world? Yeah. Nurul, Lailatul, Basaria, yeah, you can unmute and speak. I'm comfortable with that.
Africa.
Yeah, South Africa.
South Africa.
And what is the meaning of apartheid? What did they do? Who was not allowed to mix with whom? Yeah, discrimination, black discrimination. It was to keep black people out of the way of white people. And it is Africa who owns the land and the country a link between Palestinian activists and violence. Apparently, nothing of the sort is mentioned in the text, but this we can conclude by reading between the lines. 6. She notices acts of vandalism, which comes towards the end, is to link Palestinians with crime without using word crime. It is to portray Palestinians as criminals. While reader A thought that Palestinians have indulged in an act of vandalism, but since the police didn't arrest them, it is not mentioned. That means they have not done anything bad. The government is very tolerant. Point number 7. The text also mentions that this act of vandalism was going on for some time, because it says this is not the first time they have done so. So reader B understand this is to discredit the success of activists. As if the writer is saying, look, we are reporting this news to highlight the achievements, however small, of Palestinians, because we are good people. Otherwise, it is a routine matter, not really worth reporting. Excuse me. 8th observation she makes is the identity and affiliation of the activists are not mentioned in the news. It must be a deliberate attempt to dehumanize people, the activists. Like, these people have no name, no description, no identity, no personality. If you look at TV news or even newspapers, they say, oh, the names of those people who died. Weren't they human? But if one VIP dies somewhere, we will have his name or her name and the parents' name and the husband's name and the wife's name and the children's name, everything. So this is a very common factor, not giving names. The text doesn't reveal where Palestinian activists wrote about their action. This is as if this is an attempt to show how backward Palestinians are. They don't even know how to use Facebook or internet. Where did they write? We don't know. The registered name of the news agency is MAN News Agency. And you can check it on the internet. It's a Palestinian news agency which writes MAN News Agency. But the text mentions Palestinian MAN News Agency. The addition of Palestinian alarms the reader. She understands it is done to convince readers that though there are other versions of the news glorifying the activists, this one, which doesn't really represent activists in positive light, is the true version because it comes from the Palestinian sources. So MAN News Agency becomes Palestinian MAN News Agency. Now read it again. Can you see all that? You can read it to yourself, no need to unmute your mic. But can you see all that we talked about, the 10 points? Can you see them clearly? Arshia, can I ask you, the comment you have written down, this is about what? I can imagine my voice take up a different tone altogether now. This is in context of what? This response. Okay, done? So I'm moving. So now we all know. Okay, my tone was more victorious. I'm so happy that you mentioned it, Arshia. When we go deep, we start sympathizing with other people. Although you had information and you were not so as, you were not like reader A. You were somewhere between reader A and reader B. Now you have come to reader B's side. Is there anyone who has changed mind now? First sympathized with reader A and now with reader B? Is there anyone? Because critical reading is about when we find new information, we make a new judgment, we make a new decision. There is nothing to be ashamed of. If I thought this is okay, I find new information, so I revalidate my decision. What's there? It's my decision. Is there anyone who had to change? No one? All good, all great minds. Very good. So, in conclusion, while a non-critical reader looks at the facts in a text and accepts them at their face value, like literally, the critical reader, very important words, continuously interacts with the text to uncover writer's purpose and intention. She carefully considers the tone and analyzes the language to identify bias. But we should remember that all texts do not contain bias. As we talked about it before, in that case, we still read them critically to understand writer's unique perspective. Give you another example, and this is very, very simple. It all happened in the month of April, and we are still in lockdown actually. These two news, ANI is a news agency, and actually they are, it's a full form is Asian News Agency, Asian News International, and ANI, and it reported a revenue of 68.23 crore in 17-18. And I'm sure it must have gone up since. It's such a big news agency that it feeds 99% of news, whether fake news or not, to writers from India. And from writers, it goes to the rest of the world. And this is not, I'm not giving you any, secret information. It's from Wikipedia. Now, first they put this news, this one. And this is about, will someone read this part? Yesterday's news? I want somebody to read. We have 10 minutes, we'll finish. I want someone to read.
Hello.
Yep.
Read, ma'am?
Yeah, read the lower bit. 106 new positive cases, please.
106 new positive cases reported in Tamil Nadu today, of which 90% are from single source conduct. Total number of positive cases rises to 1,075 in the state, of which 971 cases are from single source conduct. Total 11 deaths till now. Bila Rajesh, Tamil Nadu Health Secretary.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the news is so many new positive cases were reported, and who reported? Bila Rajesh, who's the Health Secretary of Tamil Nadu, and total number, she said, positive cases has risen to 1075 in the state of Tamil Nadu. But interestingly, see what does the news say? 971 cases. That is almost 1,000 cases. Please, please, please don't write on my screen. I'll have to stop sharing the screen and then come back again to remove these. Oh my, somebody's. Okay, just wait a minute. I'll stop sharing and I'll come back. Where is my cursor? Oh, where is my cursor now? Okay, now I found my cursor. So, almost 1,000 cases from single source conduct. Again, someone is writing on my screen. What has happened suddenly? Please don't. This will be wastage of time. I'm again stopping to share and I'll come back so that all these scribbles are removed. So almost 1,000 cases from single source conduct. But what is conduct, single source conduct? There is a background to this conduct. What is the conduct? Because this was going on in 2 weeks before this, where a euphemism is a harmless word which is used to mean something very different. Single source contact was being used for Tablighi Jamaat, who was accused of on purpose spreading corona, to the extent that a word was coined, corona jihad. But it is not single source contact. It doesn't say. From Tablighi Jamaat, single source contact, it became single source conduct. Why? After this news was published, actually Miss Bila Rajesh, she objected. She said she has not said single source contact. She has not mentioned it. That means she said she did not mean to accuse Tablighi Jamaat members of spreading coronavirus. So next day, ANI published this one. They said correction. 106 positive cases today, in which 16 have travel history and remaining 90 are their contacts, said Tamil Nadu Health Secretary Bila Rajesh. And look at the note. Reporter incorrectly quoted Tamil Nadu Health. And again, look at the spelling mistake, Healthy Secretary. It should be Health Secretary. Error is regretted. On April 12, Bila Rajesh did not mention single source contact. So why did they change single source contact to conduct? Here is the reason. Use of word conduct is a deliberate attempt to allude to the bad conduct of Tablighi Jamaat, who were being wrongly accused of spreading coronavirus. This is why contact is changed into conduct. And even here, if you see, reporter incorrectly quoted. Which reporter? They don't give you a name. This is just like Palestinian Man Agency or the Palestinian activists. These are somebody who has done it. It should be reported. But the reporter's name is not there. And I really appreciate this one because lots of fake news is going on all around, especially in WhatsApp and social media. So these two people, Prateek Sinha, and he was also with him. What is his name? Mohammed Zubair. They founded this company, which is called Alt News, and they fact check for fake news. And every day they are putting lots of information. This is fake news, this is fake news, this is fake news. So let us look at what are the uses of critical reading. Here are 4 general uses. Number 1 is to identify and understand the bias in the text or media, and to differentiate between true news reporting and propaganda. To understand texts of history and humanities correctly. If there is a bias, we should know. Why not? We don't want to be fooled as readers. To interpret the literary compositions, both prose and poetry. So here we look for writer's unique perspective. Okay? Any question? If there is a question, I will take it. Otherwise, we'll go and look at the strategies to become. No, Smita Narayan says it could be just a printing mistake, healthy secretary. It can be, there can be a typo, I don't deny that. But since ANI had been putting in so much of false news, fake news, I doubt. Or the person didn't know and really made a mistake, health or healthy. But when you see so many typos, that tells you that the person who is not serious about writing this news. If I put that kind of mistakes, you remember yesterday my slides had 2 mistakes. And after I finished the webinar, I corrected them so that I don't repeat them. Another single source, remember to market. Yeah, but being an international news agency, yes, this is what I'm saying. This is why, because you are the future. You are all young. You are yet to, in another 10 years, you will be doing all important things in the world, whether you are doing at home or you are working in an office or in a university. You will be running the world. So you have to be very, very aware of these things, what is going on. Because especially I chose this particular news item for a single reason, that Palestinian, I knew I have to put in a lot of effort to get the message across, but that was necessary because we are all Indians. If Christians in Europe treated Jews badly, it has nothing to do with us, Indians. Of all religions, we are Indians, we had nothing to do. And now if Israelis are treating Palestinians badly, again, it has nothing to do with us. We are Indians. So I took, because when you talk about critical thinking, critical reading especially, the text is always controversial. So I wanted a text which has nothing to do with us. Okay, so let's see. The strategies to become a critical reader. First, think critically, evaluate and analyze information, arguments, ideas, whatever is given. Just don't accept it as face value. Validate writers' arguments, ideas, and information by comparing them with your own understanding of the world. First thing you see, those people who do not care about what is going on in the world, they can never find flaws in a news report. But if you are a reader, aware, you know what is going on in the world, you can find all this. What you have read earlier on the same topic, it becomes very important because then you compare and analyze and evaluate. Collect background information about the topic. If you really don't know anything, go check. Now it's so easy with internet. If you do not have enough background information, go and check. Do research. Point number 5 is become a part of the writer's audience. If you are reading a book written for primary school children, I'm just explaining what it means by becoming a part of writer's audience. So if you are reading a book for primary school children, and you must read and find, there you will find bias against women. It's always the father is shown reading a newspaper, mother is in the kitchen. Why mother should be in the kitchen? Always, even in the illustration. So when you are reading a book written for primary school children, think of yourself as a primary school child to understand. That's what I mean by becoming a part of the writer's audience. Read with an open mind. Do not invent bias if there is none. See again my spelling mistake, N-O-N, none. Read slowly. Read with patience and reflect objectively on the text. And scrutinize the language for bias. Look for what flattery. What do they do is, somebody who's not very good, they'll say, oh, so-and-so is the star of this century. Now that the star is, this is all flattery. Or sometimes they give you partial facts and hide the other facts. Often they use value-laden words to attribute either positive or negative connotations. If it is a business and they want to show it in a positive light, they'll say, oh, it's a charitable organization. And you may think it is not possible, it is possible. Here we have something called ESF. And they run a whole lot of schools. And the fee is so high, that one person need to work every month to pay one child's fee. And then they call themselves a charitable organization with such heavy fees. Or you can call an organization a cult. When referring to a historian, they'll say, oh, he's a pseudo-historian. And this is very, very common. We see everybody who's shot down is a terrorist or extremist. I wonder, is it really? So this is it. Now let us see. Any question, any answer? We have 5 minutes. Yes. Kevin, Jerry, if you tell me yesterday's question, I'll tell you the answer, please. And if you go home and a question comes to your mind, we can talk about it tomorrow again. Because the whole idea, that's why I put this critical reading in the middle of the 3 sessions. Please ask questions. I don't want anyone to go home confused. What Smitha Narayan says, this is true. I mean, what has religion got to do with somebody who's got COVID? But that shows the bias, how they create bias. And what is the purpose of creating that bias? That there will be a rift between people. Kevin, can you please put your question here so that I can answer it?
Girls, is anybody there for questions? Please raise up questions, girls.
Can I say something? Asking question is a very good thing to do for university students. Don't keep quiet. If you don't, questions are never stupid. Answers are stupid. Answers maybe, not are, maybe. But your question will always be relevant. So please do ask. Delivery part, what did you mean by stay alert? Yes. So let me, from yesterday, Kevin, Jerry had asked me this question. And actually I typed the answer, but that was very late, I think, almost closing. So Kevin, Jerry, when I say stay alert while giving a presentation, stay alert, that means you keep your eyes on the audience and see if you are able to communicate with them or they have lost interest in your presentation. That's what I mean by be alert. Okay, what is the main goal of critical reading? I'm so happy you asked. What is the difference between deconstruction and critical reading, man? Deconstruction, the purposes are different. Critical reading, see, okay, so we can do goal of critical reading and here, we'll go. The goal of critical reading. 2. See? Now you can see the difference with deconstruction also. Shanmita and Shivranjani. Does it answer your question? You're welcome, Karen. Okay, good. Any more questions? Critical reading leads to it. Oh, yes. But I tell you one more thing. You become so critically alert about everything, you know. So many things which you like may not like. It happens. What about religion, faith in Quran? Yes, it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do. What I'm trying to say is, some people try to create that kind of fake news, and it has a purpose. Why will somebody do? Because they want to divide people. It's a neat discussion. Yes. Okay, I haven't read it, but I'll do that. I don't know. I get to read only online version. And some of you might go into journalism. So be responsible for what you may do. Right or wrong? Vijayalakshmi, I don't understand your question. Right or wrong? Is it a comment? And Sister Abida, it's up to you when you want to close. India local time is 3:31 now. Vigorously sifting the wheat from the chaff. Yes, that's what we are doing. That's what we are doing. And we must do it. I want all of you to be very smart readers. Be critical readers. Wish you all the best. And
Thank you,
so much.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your enriching presentation about critical thinking. In today's world, thinking critically is so very mandatory for every citizen, and your talk about discovering information, arguments, and ideas were really informative and changed the perspective of reading, honestly. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
I invite Dr. Madhu, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to present the oath of thanks.
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you are.
Good evening to everyone. On behalf of the staff and students of the Department of English, I would like to thank Mrs. Atya Bansal, the resource person, for the valuable time and effort taken in enlightening our students through this webinar called Essential Study Skills. Ma'am, your presentation today on critical reading skills and how to take notes and how to read between lines were very interesting and informative. And your slides on to become a critical reader was a real eye-opener for all of us. Madam, your session was very interactive and lively, and our students would definitely have enjoyed your session. Thank you, organizers, and thank you, students, for making this webinar a lively and interesting one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. So we've come to the end of the session. Students, you can leave. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all and all.
Thank you.